Hello, and welcome to Quarantine Conversations. This is your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's guest is Andrew Doyle, who is an author, playwright, and comedian responsible for many a chuckle, both local and abroad. In this conversation, we explore different ways in which the culture war might adapt or trip over itself during the present crisis. We also circumambulate vociferously through many a different free-ranging conversation topic, as is the wont of brains like ours. So without further ado, here is Andrew Doyle. How has the landscape changed for you since we last spoke?
It's recognizable, isn't it? It's how are you getting on? Whereabouts are you? Which bit of the country are you in?
I'm in Washington State, which I think was pretty much one of the first places where it touched down.
Right, okay.
And we've been on lockdown. My day job is working for a local school, and that was shut down, I guess 2 weeks ago now. This is the second week of just being at home now.
Right.
But the governor just shut everything down.
Right.
Everything non-essential. I think it was about a week ago.
Yeah, last time we spoke, this wasn't even on the cards, was it? I mean, it's
maybe
surprising.
Some people knew about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what it's like where you are. We're allowed to exercise once a day. So we're allowed to leave the house once a day for exercise. I'm finding that quite stressful, actually, because I don't normally bother. So doing the one-a-day thing, it's been tough.
So it's mandated. You're not allowed just to go out once. Everybody's forced to go out once.
Well, I'm reading it that way. Because it's a good excuse to have to go and walk around the place.
Yeah.
I spoke to my cousin in Florence, and he was telling me. I'd spoken to him a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how he was having to take papers with him if he wanted to even walk the dog or go to a shop, and you had to have a signed document, which is very much like a wartime condition.
Yeah.
And it felt very strange. It felt very odd. And he directed me to a live webcam. There's a place. Do you know Florence at all?
No.
Right. So you should go. Not that you can now, but you should. The center. So this is high tourist season in Florence, and Florence, as you know, is one of the busiest cities in Italy. And there's a place at the center of the city called the Piazza Signoria, which is the most beautiful. It's got like a loggia and statue. There's a copy of Michelangelo's David there. There's the Palazzo Vecchio and all sorts of incredible. And it's normally rammed. It's normally just packed, and you can go on this live webcam, and it's like The Walking Dead. It's like
just the pigeons.
just not even pigeons, not just nothing. And it's that sort of stuff. It feels almost cinematic,
Yeah.
I'm gin and tonic. I hope you don't mind, because here it's evening. Where you are is probably.
I'm kind of at my ginger ale time of the day, but I left it in the kitchen.
Yeah, I've left my ginger ale part of the day. That was.
Do you think that?
Go on, sorry.
No, I was just wondering, do you think that Britain has some sort of, institutional memory about going into lockdown that's fresher for you guys? You guys are going to be able to adapt to that mindset?
I don't know. Everyone keeps invoking the Blitz spirit, don't they? But it's not really the same thing at all. It's not the same. But people are generally pretty good, I think, on the whole, and people have been really looking out for each other, and you had the early scares with all the stockpiling and all of that kind of stuff, and people were thinking, well, is everyone just going to become feral, when this all kicks off? And actually, people just aren't like that on the whole. You get a few people who behave in a selfish way, but they did the same in the war. There were all sorts of black marketeers and people in the war who were using it in an opportunistic way. But most people are just decent people, and everyone's, So I think we'll be. What do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction? I know no one picked, but you seem like a pretty sharp guy, so I think you seem shrewd.
I was talking to Katie Herzog just earlier today, and she's got pretty cynical view of it. She's an author, a writer, a journalist up in Seattle, just north of me, and she's worried about food shortages, and she's worried about the stress on the hospitals, and that we might be seeing a lot of secondary effects that could possibly just completely ruin, things for quite a while. So there's that view, but I don't know if I necessarily subscribe to that, because I don't know yet.
So I'm not going to predict because I'm always rubbish at predictions, but I could tell you what I'm hoping for, right? Because the projections at the moment from experts are that most of us have already had it in the country. Okay, so the statisticians, whoever they are, who are projecting, they think most of us have already had it. And if that's the case, there's a potential that we've got an immunity to it, at least for a certain degree of time. That's my hope, that most of us have had it. We've been asymptomatic. We haven't noticed it. And and these new tests that they're generating these new tests of antibodies, which should be up and running in a couple of weeks' time. And if that is the case, then things can probably get back to normal quicker than anyone thought. That's my hope. Mm-hmm. I think it'd be good. But otherwise, we're stuck, aren't we? It's not so bad for me because I'm just used to being inside and being by myself.
Yeah, you're very online.
I'm not. I'm a writer, so I don't.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly happy not going out that much. But I do feel for those people who are more social animals, and who require the society of other people. I'm too much of a misanthropist to need the company of others.
That's fair. I'm kind of in your boat. I'm a generous misanthrope, but still a misanthrope.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, no, I like people. I just don't like being around them. I like that they exist, but I don't need them near me to thrive.
Yeah.
He had one sip of gin, by the way. This sounds like I'm a bit drunk. I'm not.
No, I like it. I like it. But what do you think has changed about the discourse, like the internet discourse?
Oh, that's interesting.
Have you noticed any tide changes?
I have. I've noticed that the typically vicious people are being even more vicious, and I wonder if it's to do with the. Lots of people are sort of suggesting, well, will woke culture survive all of this stuff? Because of course it's just so grounded on stuff that doesn't really matter, and is so kind of. Well, but it's not trivial. This is the problem with it: is that it should be trivial, but it's not, because it's infected so many sort of major mainstream institutions of politics, law, media, the arts are so overrun by this stuff that is built on sand, and maybe, and so lots of people are sort of speculating now. Well, because who cares? Who cares about representation in soap operas and Hollywood when you've got an actual crisis to deal with? No one cares about this stuff. And so I tweeted about this today because I have a sincere hope that this will kill off that sort of illiberal, woke, authoritarian mindset, because those people look ridiculous now. But to me, they've always looked ridiculous. But maybe now that will happen. And maybe that's why I'm seeing a greater degree of viciousness from that contingent. We saw today Boris Johnson and Matt Hancock, the health secretary, have both been tested positive for coronavirus, and the level of venom and people just gleefully gloating about this and expressing their desire that he die in pain and all this sort of stuff. And it's not just one or two, it's a lot of people, and they're coming from, these are the same people who have the pronouns in their bios and signal how wonderful and what good, compassionate people they are. And they're the ones who are really indulging in this kind of really unpleasant vitriol, this kind of, really terrible behavior. But it's worse. I think it's worse than it normally would be. And I think it might be that they're sensing that their whole movement might be on the verge of expiration. Because, when you actually have things to worry about. I mean, it's like a lot of this stuff came about because we're just not used to hardship. So when things are going well, you find the trivial and escalated into the tragic. And that, I think, has been happening now for a number of years. And now we're being confronted with something that's actually life-threatening, though it puts things into perspective, maybe in a really healthy way. Of course, we're not dealing with people who are capable of self-reflection. So I think they'll double down, hunker down, get worse, get more vicious, like a rat trapped in a corner, They'll bite back and they won't go without a fight. But my hope is that I won't ever have to write about this stuff or talk about this stuff ever again. That's what I really would love to happen, ultimately.
You'd be free.
I'd be free of this. I can go back to talking about other things that are more important and things that matter to me more,
Such as what?
Politics, literature, the economy, poverty, class consciousness, stuff that actually... I feel like I've been talking about this the woke movement so much because I feel obliged to, because I've seen how damaging it is, and I've seen how destructive it's been for society and for culture and for politics. And I'd love for nothing more than it to just go. So I'm in two minds about it. Will it or will it not? I don't. Probably not, just because I know what they're like. But maybe people just will stop taking them seriously now. Who knows?
Yeah,
so that's
I was
not
wondering.
fiction, that's more a kind of wandering. You know?
Yeah, I was wondering if they lose credibility, that will be what kind of they're going to have to adapt and go on to other topics.
Potentially, but then I've seen also lots and lots of threads of all sorts of articles and things coming out which are weaponizing coronavirus in order to advance a woke mindset. You know, so it's already happening, and of course it would do. You know, and some of them are utterly ridiculous. You know, some of them have been really stupid, talking about the lack of diversity in Trump's coronavirus team, task force or whatever, and talking about how whiteness is related to the. I mean, look, honestly, it's the usual stuff, right? It's you can Google and find it, but what I'm thinking is, I mean, they've always been a minority, people like this, but now I think people are going to take them even less seriously than they ever did. That's probably what I'm thinking.
How do you go back to talking about class consciousness after dealing with something as radioactive and wild as the woke doctrine?
Well, I didn't stop. I mean, I've written about the most important, when we're talking about diversity, the most important element of diversity is class, is representation of people from different, because class has tangible benefits or negatives, doesn't it? You know, I mean, you can't just walk in. You don't have that kind of nepotism unless you come from wealth. Mm-hmm. And so much of this is driven by class. So that's where I've never stopped talking about it and writing about it. But I think, stuff to do with any form of extreme identity politics is always a distraction, from things that actually matter. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll go back to that. I'd love to write more about literature. I'd love to write more about arts. Again, I was working on a biography of a novelist, which I had to put on hold because of all of this stuff. I've done all the.
Which novelist?
It's a novelist called Forrest Reed, who's a Northern Irish novelist who died in 1947, and he has a brilliant autobiography called Apostate, which I think is the best autobiography I've ever read. It was written in 1926, but it's set when he was a child. When you're talking. He was born in 1875, so it's the last quarter of the 19th century in Belfast. And the book is called Apostate, and it's the best account of childhood, written so beautifully. And he's such a unique individual. Bear in mind, this is coming from a Church of Ireland background in Belfast in 1880, 1890. He had an instinctive paganism. He rejected Jesus. He used to. There's a bit where he's talking about being in the church and screaming and throwing the hymn book down. All this when he's like 5 years old. All this very instinctive. He found just Christ and the cult of Christianity as this kind of rebarbative force, and he instead worshipped the earth and the trees and the gods of Pan, and this kind of very unique, strange character, not at all like me, but he allows you to understand his perspective. It's very, very interesting. And his books are brilliant, but he's been all but forgotten, pretty much totally forgotten. So I've done all the research. I've read everything he's ever written, all his letters. I've uncovered documents that people hadn't seen before. I've got it all the documents I need to write the book, and I've written about a third of the book. But I had to stop because I ended up because you have to live, don't you? You can't just work. Because even when I finish this book, no one's going to buy it. Like it's literally just for me.
Yeah.
And like the 3 or 4 people who still read Forrest Reed novels. But no one's going to care. So, but I really want that. I'm more passionate about that. But you get distracted by stuff that obviously you feel you have to deal with now, or like with the Titania McGrath book. That was a job. I cared about it as well. So that was one of those fortuitous moments where you're getting paid for something you actually think is valuable.
How do you say your name again? Because I can't do it. I can't.
Titania.
Titania.
Titania McGrath.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it the accent thing, or is it the?
I don't know. I got called out several times, but the British like to call me out on my my flaws.
Do they?
That's
so rude.
No.
Well, we're a pedantic race, I guess.
Well, that's how you guys got ahead for that brief moment of time when you're on top of the world, right?
Very, very briefly.
You pedanted all the way around the world.
We did. We pedanted. Oh, pedanted. Yeah. Well, the sun never set on the empire, did it? Was it the biggest empire the world's ever seen?
So you're rearing to go back to boring then. You're like, I can't wait to go back to boring in a way.
I can't wait. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's because it's funny and everything, because people with a lack of self-awareness are funny, and people who are screaming about pronouns and things. I mean, there's something funny about that, but I also find it a little bit scary, and I'd like to go back to a society, not even going back, actually. It's not something we've ever fully attempted, which is I would like us to have a society in which we seriously embrace liberal values. That's what I want, right? As a kind of, that's a baseline. We've sort of attempted it, but not successfully.
Don't you think that there's a class analysis, and maybe not class in terms of material class, but classiness analysis that can be put on that? Like, aren't certain people just going to want to act that way, and certain people aren't going to want to act that way, and the illiberal are just going to usually control the conversation because they're the brats screaming in the corner?
You'll always have the brats screaming in the corner because we're dealing with human nature, and there's the difference is when you allow the brats to run the classroom. That's when it gets fucked up. I mean, no one would care if these people were just screaming on Twitter and that was it. But they're not. They run government departments and quangos and universities, and the police and the judiciary. I mean, come on, this is that. It's not. That's why the culture matters so much. It's not that it's just. I could deal with idiots screaming on Twitter. Block them and move on, right? You can't block government quango.
No. No when they're coming knocking on your door for a limerick.
No. Yeah, you can't block the police.
Have you gotten any serious trouble with wrongthink?
No, yeah. I mean, I've been very fortunate, and I'm fortunate insofar as I work for myself, and I decide what I say, and I say what I want, and I'm not censored, and I'm not being, I've never been, I've lost jobs, I've lost work over what I've chosen to say, I've lost work for having the wrong opinion, but I accept that as a corollary of speaking my mind, and I'll go and get other work. And also, I don't want to work for someone who is has those kind of attitudes and is has that kind of backward attitude. So, it's fine. It's fine for me, but it's not. It's people who, it's friends of mine actually. It's friends and family and people who have to work in jobs that aren't like my job. They have to work in departments where there's someone breathing down their neck all the time, or checking what they're saying to each other, or checking what jokes they're making, and people generally feeling. I mean, whatever you think about this stuff, there is a general sense in which people feel they can't speak their minds anymore. They can't say what they think without fear of repercussions. And whether you think that fear is warranted or not, I don't think anyone can deny that the fear is there, and it is ubiquitous. So that's why I feel it has to be addressed.
How do you think that the corona crisis might allow people to call bullshit on that? Do you think that that's a possibility? That's potentially, insofar as we've had a brush now with some kind of global crisis. Not comparable to the Blitz, but we've dipped our toes into something. And we've got a kind of premonition of what things could be like. I mean, what if we have another pandemic which is more severe, which is on the level of, say, SARS was, but it goes international? Then what do you do? And so now, I think a bit of perspective might come out of this. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So class consciousness. I don't know anything. I really don't know.
You do, I mean, I've seen the way you tweet. You're very erudite.
Yeah, because I have a sentence that somebody else made me think of, and then I just work with the rhythm until it's perfect, and it feels like me thinking.
No, I mean, you shouldn't knock it. It's a good skill.
No. In the world of sentences, I'm thinking that's going to be my first book, my book. It's just going to be called Sentences, a Book by Benjamin Boyce.
I'd buy that. It's very meta. I like it.
It's just, I think that's what I want to do.
Well, I think, okay, so class consciousness. Do I think I think it's a good opportunity for kind of self-reflection. Anything like this is a really good opportunity to sort of think, okay, so how do we establish a new, what does the left do? What should the left do now? Now, I think the left needs to completely rethink what its whole, I mean, the left in our country, in the UK, has become virtually unelectable because of woke politics now, right? The Democrats have nearly got there. They almost got there with Elizabeth Warren, say, or the Squad, which has been really great for Trump. The Alexander Ocasio-Cortezes of the world. All of those sorts of people which make the left a laughing stock. So what the left has to do is rid itself of identity politics. The trouble is, identity politics on the right is a vote winner. So you can have nationalist populists pushing identity politics, their form of identity politics, which is nationalism, and they get votes off it, and they get in power. When the left does it, they lose every single time. Now, if you don't believe me, there's a great book by Mark Liller called The Once and Future Liberal, which talks all about this, about how it guarantees unelectability. If you are a left-wing party and you push identity politics, it will never work. And the data's in on that. So we know that doesn't work. So what do? We need to rethink what is the left all about. Well, the left's priority has to be the working class. It has to be social mobility. It has to be looking out for the weakest and most vulnerable in society. And the mistake that the woke identitarians made is that they thought that the prisms of class, race, gender, and sexuality matter more than money, and they don't. They do matter. I'm not saying they're not important, but they're not as important as the tangible effects of not being able to afford to feed your family, right? So money is what matters ultimately most of all. So we need a leftist movement that focuses on class and is aware of the issues of class, and is aware of the benefits and privileges that come with class. We need a leftist movement that is unambiguously against racism in all of its forms, for equality, and also, if you're against racism, it means reminding yourself what racism actually means and being aware of it, and being aware that to call someone racist is one of the most serious accusations you can make. So you better be sure there has to be evidence. So I say, stand up against racism where it exists, not where you perceive it might be. That's why we have to rid ourselves of these ideas of power structures and and unconscious bias and all the stuff which is basically people seeking out racism where it probably isn't. So that's something that the left needs to regain again. What else can we do?
Andrew, could you hold on for a moment? Your video froze.
Right.
Can I call you back real quick?
Yeah, do it. Anyway, you were asking me what do we do in the future?
Well, okay, so you were cleaning up the left. You're doing like the William Buckley, like, for the left. You're going to go in there. You're going to reform the whole party, and
I think we need a credible left-wing option, and that only comes. I think identity politics is the major issue. I think we have to, and the return to class consciousness. Those are the major things for me, and to stand up against genuine inequality. That does include inequality of race, gender, sexuality, the stuff that the woke people do claim to support. Yeah. Even though they make it worse. But that stuff's important if it's done in the right way and in an intelligent adult way, not just screaming racist all the time because you just assume someone is. So, yeah, the left has to get that on board.
Has class consciousness ever really worked as a political movement, or does it dissolve into...
The Labour movement comes from that.
Okay.
I keep talking about Labour, and it's a very UK-centric thing to talk about. But the Labour movement came out of the need to represent the working man in Parliament. That's where it came from. That's why it's always been so closely associated with the trade unions. To not understand that is the party is called Labour. Like, it's not like we know what this means. To not understand that has got to be. But this is why the Labour Party fucked up so badly in the last election, because they tried to overturn the Brexit vote, even though the majority of Labour constituencies voted to leave, and the majority of working class people voted to get out of the EU for all sorts of reasons, but partly because there was a perception that there was wage depression due to freedom of movement, right? And so, and these are not people with money, so money is it's a priority for people, So. We need a proper look. Even if you're not a socialist, it is in your benefit, it is in your interest to have a serious, genuine left-wing socialist opposition, or at least a choice. I don't want Tony Blair's version of Labour and Peter Mandelson's version of Labour, which is identical to the Tories, except it was just more socially liberal on certain issues. I don't want that. I want two distinct parties, and there can be a choice again. And I think that's probably what we need to do. And we need to stop. What else do we need to do? I don't know. I think that'll do for now, won't it? That's quite.
Like your wish list is pretty short then.
I think we can put pressure on the Chinese to sort out their animal husbandry, so we don't have another pandemic, maybe. You know, and that apparently is quite a contentious thing to say, but I don't think there's a problem there. You know, with pointing out that
certain cultural practices lead to massive depreciation of human life across the globe.
So I wasn't sure why this was, and I looked it up, and I've absolutely I'm utterly ignorant about anything to do with biology or science. So I sort of wanted to know, why do they keep why is it from bats all the time? And apparently it's because bats have an incredibly strong immune system. Do you know about this? They have an incredibly strong immune system, so they can carry multiple viruses all at once, very strong, virulent viruses, and it doesn't affect them. It doesn't harm them because they're mammals that have the power to fly, and apparently flight requires incredible energy, and therefore they build up incredible immune systems. But so they can carry these deadly viruses, and it does nothing to them. They don't care. And then when it transfers to a human, our immune systems are not equipped to cope with it. So we need to maybe genetically modify humans so we can fly, maybe.
Okay.
Or some, I don't know. Like I say, I'm not a scientist. I don't know how that would work. But we need to think
about wing-genics or something like that?
Something like that. Something like that would be good. I quite enjoy that.
Take to the air. Would you really, though?
What, to be able to fly? Hell yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
I've never understood that fantasy. Like, what do you gain from being able to lift off from the ground? I guess escape?
It's cheaper if you want to go abroad. I never went on holiday abroad as a kid because we couldn't afford it. So I always envied people who could go on holidays to foreign countries, and if I could fly, that would solve that. Is it really come to this now? That's what we're talking about now. I don't know.
See, I just, as a human being, I don't think you could fly across the channel. I mean, I think that'd be like just like swimming. Like, it would take a certain sort of phenotype to do that. You know.
Yeah, and I'm quite lazy.
Yeah.
I know. But in all seriousness, I mean, is it a problem to put pressure on the Chinese government to monitor this stuff and to? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, I think that the Chinese government's got a pretty strong propaganda arm that can leverage the identity politics that the West has been playing with in their favor, right? So they could just, I think they were the first, they did a marketing blitz, calling it Chinese virus is racist. Like the Chinese propagandists were the first ones saying that. And then, of course, the American media.
Bubonic plague came from China. How about that?
Yeah.
So, you know, they've got history, and that's silly. Here's the thing, right? What I loved about the whole Chinese virus thing is then all of a sudden I saw these debates about Spanish flu. You know, so people were saying, well, we don't call it Spanish flu anymore. Lots of people were saying that, and I thought, are you kidding? Everyone calls it the Spanish flu. Yeah. Literally everyone calls it the Spanish flu. They were literally trying to revise history. They were gaslighting everyone right in front of your eyes. They were saying nobody ever calls it the Spanish flu anymore because it's not. Even I know that flu did not originate in Spain, but we still all call it the Spanish flu. So let's not pretend that we've stopped doing that, because we do. I don't think
it really shows, like, that little news cycle really shows the brilliance of Trump and the idiocy of our marketeers. Like, it really shows that the large portion of media and journalism is just obsessed with labels and just obsessed with framing.
Exactly. No one was saying, oh, it's come from China, therefore Chinese people are awful. Or no one was saying that. It wasn't a racist thing. But then, of course, the concern becomes, well, what about if an actual racist uses that kind of language in order to? That's the argument, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, justify. It's kind of a future crime kind of thing.
But it doesn't stop. It doesn't change the fact that the virus originated in China, and there are reasons for that. You know, and it's not because of Chinese people. It's because of the animal husbandry and the wet markets.
Yeah, somebody even made a really good point that it was the conditions under Mao that forced the Chinese people to start eating all these different animals because they didn't have any other source of food.
Oh, you broke up there, Benjamin.
I did break up.
Can you hear me still?
Has your business been changed? I guess you guys aren't doing that tour, you and Mr. Thirst Trap, Douglas Murray.
Are we doing the tour? I haven't heard yet. No, but I assume what's going to happen is that we are going to postpone the dates.
Okay.
I think.
Was that going to happen like next month or?
Well, because the tour. Well, so I had the Titania McGrath tour, which was for April. So that's not going to happen. So what I'm sure those dates will be. I think at the moment they're looking into moving the dates so we can keep the tour and just do it later in the year. And you know, if it turns out that most of us have already had the coronavirus and we can all go back to work in 3 weeks, then that'll work out fine. In terms of the tour with Douglas, that will probably go ahead. We're still planning to doing it, but I think it'll be later in the year. That's all. So I think we'll keep the. You know, I think we'll just. I don't know because I haven't been told anything, but I assume it will just reschedule the dates, and if people want a refund, I guess they can get a refund. You know, I think that's probably what will happen. I mean, this is happening to everyone. Like everyone who's doing a show or touring a show. I've got a lot of comedian friends, and of course they're all rescheduling their tours for later in the year. And most of them are doing the sensible thing, which is saying, you know, you can keep your tickets or get a refund. You know, so we'll all lose out. No, everyone's in the same boat here, and that's fine.
Yeah, but you were already set up to just be a writer then, so have you seen a big change in your day-to-day life?
No, not really. I mean, I wrote an article yesterday. I've got a lot still to do, so I'm okay at the moment, but we'll see. But of course, I'm always living on, like, in terms of income, it's always quite precarious. You know, I just get to take work where I can get it. I'm not. You know, I don't. It's not like having a stable job. I almost sort of miss having a stable job. You know, did you ever have like a proper 9-to-5 job?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. I always cobbled together.
Because I used to work in a call center, and I also was a teacher, and I was a waiter for a while. And those things, it was like you got to go in at a certain time, you got to finish at a certain time, and that part of me misses that. I could never go back to teaching. That's the problem. Because if I did, like, they'd Google me, wouldn't they? And there's all these people calling me a Nazi, and they'd think, oh, it's probably not worth the risk. That
was the call center like a cool thing, like you were saving people's lives, or you were helping them with their insurance?
No, it was for a store card.
Oh,
it was for those. I don't know if you have them in America. So like, it's like a credit card which is specific to one particular store.
Yeah,
I presume you have those. So I would basically be on the phone for people because the trouble with store cards is they have extortionate interest rates, far away and above your typical kind of Visa or MasterCard situation. You know, we're talking like 30% APR or something really ridiculous. And people would sign up for these store cards to get a discount on the initial purchase. And then about 3 months later, they'd realized they've lost way more than the discount on the interest alone. And they'd basically phoned me up to shout at me. And that was the job, like to be shouted at by angry people who hadn't read the small print. But why should they read the small print? I mean, who does? You know? So, and I had to obviously toe the line.
What did you discover about yourself?
I discovered that I sound very camp on the phone when I have to do something official. You know? Because I remember I used to have, because you have I'd answer the phone, I'd be like, good evening, this is Creation Financial Services, Andrew speaking, how can I help you? And you'd say it in that way, and you'd start getting this sing-song way of talking, you know? And, yeah, I don't know why. It's like you inhabit a persona, you become someone you're not, you know? Because normally I'm quite butch, right?
Okay.
I expected a bit more endorsement of my view there.
Oh, no, okay. I'm sorry, I've only thought of butch. I haven't transposed butch.
I'm going to drink my gin and tonic and...
Okay, there we go.
So, yes, because also the job is very boring. You know, and you're locked in, like you're monitored all the time because you've got the headset on, and if you're going to help a colleague, you have to type a code in. If you're going to the toilet, you have to type a code in, and all sorts of, like, they monitor you all the time, and it's very heartless and empty, and you know, soul destroying.
How long did you last?
2 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's a significant time.
I guess. Yeah. I liked being a waiter. That was fun. Except I served a living caterpillar to someone. It was silver service, you know, where you have the broccoli and the cauliflower florets on your arm, and you serve it from the arm with like a pincer movement with the spoon and the fork. I was quite good at that. And the problem is they'd steamed this broccoli, And so the caterpillars, there were multiple caterpillars in the broccoli, and they hadn't died because they hadn't been boiled; they'd been steamed. So I served this green caterpillar about that long onto a woman's plate, and I saw it, and I saw that it was alive, and it was in the throes of death, And because I was so young and non-confrontational, I just retreated to the back and hoped. I don't know what I hoped. I hoped she would eat it, maybe, and just get on with her life. But she screamed. It was horrible, and they brought in the head chef, and it was awful.
Oh man, was this the beginning of your class consciousness when you saw her reaction to you?
Well, she was posh, and I was just the boy serving the caterpillars.
Yeah.
So
upstairs downstairs moment, right? No.
No, it wasn't that. I don't think it was that. No. Although I did, when I was a teenager, I got a job serving drinks at some posh. It was a Tory MP's house, and it was an event, and I was serving the drinks at the Tory MP's house, and I was like the. So yeah, those people were rich in a way I hadn't encountered before. So yeah, maybe that was it. I don't know. No, because I don't have a problem with rich people. I don't. It's just that I never knew any growing up. And I know some now, and perfectly delightful people on the whole. Yeah,
the one thing that disturbs me or makes me wary about like a class consciousness movement is how do you create a story where you don't pit the working class against the elites? Can you do that without that contention? Or
well, that would be another. Yeah, that would be another thing I would love to do is not to demonize anybody. So, there's nothing wrong with being born in wealth, and if you are wealthy, you're still a human being at heart. It's the same thing. But but just an acknowledgement that if you're poor, you have fewer opportunities, I think is a healthy thing, and trying to seek to redress that in some way. The problem with the identitarian thing is what it says is like, if you say, for instance, if you're gay, you will always be oppressed, irrespective if you're a multimillionaire or some gay boy from a council estate, right? And it's not the same. It's not the same. So money is the motor, I think, of most things. Oppression as a word is used too much anyway. I think I feel very strongly about that you're not being oppressed unless you are living under an authoritarian state that is not allowing you to travel freely and say what you want and all the rest of it. No one in the US and the UK are oppressed. We're just not. There are some people who have terrible lives and experience terrible prejudice. It's not the same thing as oppression. And I think we need to stop having this kind of concept creep and this elevation of definitions, because it makes it difficult to talk about serious issues as and when they arise.
How has that affected your storytelling? Like when you build a plot and you make dynamics between people that are interesting, like have you seen yourself go from a victim hero kind of thing, or were you never?
Well, in drama, you always want that sort of status conflict going on, and but status can come about irrespective of money. You can have and the way status shifts in dramatic scenes and conceits can be really interesting, and it's not necessarily to do with money. It can be to do with knowledge, there are all sorts of power dynamics at play which are really interesting. I don't write about. Have I ever written about class? Or I wrote a play about two working class brothers in Derry in Northern Ireland, we toured Scotland with that play. And that was very much about. There was a strong class element to that play, I would say. But on the whole, it's not something I've explored dramatically.
But that dramatic key of.
Oh, you again, Ben?
Yeah, here we are. Wait a second. No, you're frozen.
Sorry, I called you Ben. It's Benjamin, isn't it? You don't like Ben?
It's fine. We're in our second interview. You can call me Ben.
But you don't like her, do you?
It's like my familiar term. I feel familiar enough to you now to not be rankled by being disrespected by you. Can I call you back real quick?
Are you like the way Christopher Hitchens used to be if someone called him Chris? He used to freak out. He hated it.
You know what? I should just get a chair in here so I can just start. Maybe I should just rip down the green screen.
Yeah.
Whenever that happens.
If someone calls you Ben, just A bit of drama is always good for a podcast, I think.
See, that's what I'm talking about. How do you create something interesting? Okay, so like it seems like on one level of analysis, the woke scolds are just hijacking drama for clicks, right? So it doesn't matter. Like identity politics just turns out to be the easiest thing to instantiate, like a dramatic kind of narrative. So how do you replace that tension with something else? How do you swap out that amount of activity and interactivity and reactivity that you get from that kind of storytelling in media?
Well, are you suggesting then that are you still talking about the woke scolds? Or you're talking about the drama?
Well, I'm talking about them just being bad writers. You know, so
okay.
So they're just they're pouring a bunch of sex and drugs and violence into something just to get more attention on it, right? It's just lowest kind of common denominator stuff. Like they're still using a basic dramatic tool of conflict to drive their, I guess, their narrative. So,
right, okay.
But you, as a refined author, who
it's very nice of you.
You thrive on conflict too, right? So when you go back into the media sphere, I guess one way that you drive interaction is through Titania, because she's a conflictus.
Okay, so this is different. So I don't thrive on conflict. If I'm writing a play or a musical, conflict is at the heart of it and it's essential. Yeah. Titania is I don't see her as. I know this sounds odd because people say that it's antagonistic, and I don't see it that way.
Yeah, but if the audience sees it that way, then it doesn't matter if you don't see it that way.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. And I because I had a conversation with someone recently about how when I was talking about how the need for empathy, I've written a few articles about this. I don't know if you've seen them where I'm talking about just even in terms of pure self-interest. If you're not empathetic, if you're not taking into account the other person's feelings, your argument is going to fail. So I was talking about this and how throwing insults and all of that stuff, mudslinging, it doesn't work. It doesn't work as an argumentative technique. It's childish, etc. And then they came back to me with, well, what about Titania? As in, Titania is you're making fun of your opponent, and I've never really seen it that way. Insofar as yes, it is, but it's not. I see it as a different part of my life. I mean, if I'm involved in political writing or talking about politics, I never insult people. I don't do that. I don't go into that. I don't. It would never occur to me to do that. It would be so alien to my nature. And then with Titania, that's satire, and satire doesn't necessarily represent things exactly accurate, and it uses exaggeration as part of its point. But
it's still, that's what drives attention. That's what drove a large part of people's attention to you.
I suppose the difference is that I'm not writing her character in order to upset and annoy people. That's maybe the difference. I'm aware that it does, because of how angry they get. But that's not the primary intention. The primary intention is to mock and satirize bigotry and intolerance in the form that it takes within the social justice movement. That's the point, which I think is a very positive thing to do, personally. But of course they don't do
that way.
It's hard to offend ever.
It's hard to offend you ever?
Me? Oh no, I'm quite easily offended.
When's the last time you were offended?
Today.
About what? Was it something I did?
Yeah, it's your jumper. What the hell is that? Like, I mean, it doesn't suit you.
It's from Old Navy.
It doesn't suit you. But it's like you haven't made an effort.
No, I haven't.
This is a Ben Sherman jumper, and believe you me, before you came on, I was dressed in like my pajamas. I thought, no, I'm going to make an effort because I know we're on lockdown, but we can't all just look like tramps.
I'm not like a tramp. Maybe I look like a freshman in high school. Maybe I don't think I look like a total tramp. I had a feeling I should have changed One, because I was talking to somebody else beforehand, so I'm going to have two
Yeah.
videos of me saying wearing the same thing. But
Well, exactly. So now it's obvious that you just do it in one go.
well, I need a Queer Eye kind of
No.
input thing.
A queer eye. So now it's homophobic now. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that
Unbelievable.
the gay
You are-
gene leads to insights into human, presentation that I miss
You're
out on.
calling me a fag. You're calling me a faggot.
You are a little campy
Unbelievable.
when you say things repeatedly. It kind of is sing-songy.
No, it's actually lovely. It actually does suit you. I was joking. I like it.
Okay, it's not offensive. It's not offensive. It's like hypoallergenic for your offense. So when was the last time you got offended? Like really offended? Like blood
really
boiling?
offended. I mean, look. So there's levels of offence, aren't there? Last time I got really offended was when a friend of mine behaved like a complete dick to me.
To you?
Because, it affects me less. I mean, on Twitter, when it's strangers on Twitter, it doesn't matter. But it's when someone who considers themselves to be a friend behaves badly and insults you. That's not nice. That is offensive. Nothing wrong with being offended. Like, this is the odd thing. Like, I'm often mischaracterized as believing that if you're offended, you should just grow up, you man up, you snowflake, and which is just not something I've ever said or even come close to saying. That's the weird thing about that, is I've never even remotely got close to that. Because actually I think human sensitivity is something that is a good thing, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being offended either, particularly if it's warranted. And it's, I don't have an issue with that. And I'm not, I get offended. Yes, I think that's the thing. I get offended if people who know me start mischaracterizing me or saying things to me that they must know are not true, and are therefore only intended to cause hurt and upset, and that's not good.
Okay, so first-hand offense, but not second-hand offense. You don't indulge in being offended on behalf of somebody else.
No, why would I? That doesn't make any sense to me. I see a lot of that, but I don't understand why anyone, because offense is such a personal thing. It's only about how you feel. I can't be offended on behalf of other people. I don't think that can even work. Well, I know people do it, but I just don't get it. I don't get why you would be like that.
Yeah, I think there's a certain mindset that manifests within the woke armada of projecting personal emotions onto the political sphere. Like a lot of and you get off on that because it looks like your emotions are so much bigger because you're talking about, geopolitics, or you're talking about historical racism. You're like, wow, my emotions really do matter because they expand according to the topic. Well, also,
this idea that if you're sufficiently emotional, you've won an argument, and of course that's not true. So I had an interview recently with can't remember who it was, but someone a well-known activist or writer or something. She's got a blue check anyway on Twitter.
Blue hair too.
Yeah, incredible. No, it's posted this all in capitals. You fucking sociopath! How dare you fucking? And I'd made quite a sensible point about hate speech, and someone who writes like that, you just think, wow. I mean, that isn't going to win you the argument, love. And also, you look like a fucking sociopath right there. So there's the hypocrisy element. So that sort of stuff. Yeah. There's too. Yes, I think it's always sensible. Like if I'm in an argument, a political argument or something, and I'm sensing that emotion is sort of taking over, or ego is taking over, either in myself or my detractor. I'll move along, because we're not going to get anywhere with that.
Yeah.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah. No, here you are.
You froze a bit there.
Okay,
are you going to go through out all the frozen bits?
I'm going to be spending a lot of time with your digital ghost in the coming days.
Is that going to be really boring?
No, it's fine.
For you?
I play video games and I do this at the same time.
Okay. All right, good.
But when you're on live TV and the emotions start to take over, or the ego starts to take over, how do you pivot the conversation, or do you just let them do
it? It genuinely doesn't happen very often, though. I mean, okay. I don't know. Have you ever seen me do a TV thing where someone's getting emotional with me?
I think it was Douglas Murray. I saw Douglas Murray, like the women started to break down in front of him, and you remained calm?
There's one I did about a month ago, which is a TV show called The Big Questions, and a number of people did start shouting at me. But that was just, and again, I was making what I perceived to be sensible points. I certainly wasn't being antagonistic or rude, and I just let them shout, and then just I think the failure would be is if you start shouting back.
Yeah.
That's and I do this show every now and then on the BBC called The Moral Maze, which is a radio show, and it's where there's a panel of us and we interrogate people about different immoral ideas. And
like
one of the other
problem or something like that.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with that, but it's a really great show. And I was on, one of the other panelists said to me, she's on TV quite a lot and she gets people shouting at her all the time. And she said to me, what you've got to remember is it's not about what's going on in the room. It's what's being seen from home. So just don't rise to it. And it was a great piece of advice because that coincidentally, she told me that just like the week before I was on this TV show. And they really did snap at me and shout at me. And I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to, even though your instinct is to bite back, I just didn't. And it was better that way, I think. Because I would have lost the argument that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody would see you as the violent aggressor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it never works. It literally never works. There is no example of where shouting at someone and insulting them has persuaded them to change their mind. It has literally never happened.
No. I mean, if you have like an axe or some sort of weapon, then you can command the room after you.
Oh yeah,
go all the way through with that. But
it sounds like you fantasized about that a little bit.
Well, no, right now I'm just picturing Vikings yelling at each other, and like I'm sure that has won some arguments at some point.
Yeah. Sexual fantasy.
No, this is like just bloodbath. Like this is American, just like raw, brutish violence.
Vikings to me conjures kind of pornographic.
Really?
Scenario. Have you seen the way they? Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Am I revealing too much? Was this not what you
wanted? No.
Like,
I think we finally rounded. This is the corner. This is the part of the interview where everybody's like, we got somewhere.
You're shaming me for my Viking fetish.
Well, is it the Nordic? Is it that Nordic beauty that?
I mean, they're beautiful people, aren't they?
There's no gay. And they're socialists. Well, at least they would have us believe.
Are they? Yeah, some of them are, I suppose.
Well, I guess your land was pillaged quite a bit by all sides. You guys had the Romans and the Vikings, and
oh yeah, a lot of pillaging. Went on here. Yeah.
Are you working on a musical now? Are you working on a play now? Is there something in the works?
Working on a musical, which should be. Well, it's an adaptation of an existing book, which. Well, it's going to be on in August, so I have to finish it pretty damn soon. Because I don't know at the moment whether any of the theatres will be open, so I don't know. Yeah. But, I've been commissioned to write it already, so I'm going to write it anyway. Mm-hmm. And that will be on in August, in Belfast. So I need to finish that, yeah. I need to start it, to be honest.
How do musicals work? You just think you're working with a musician, right? But like, do you come up with like a sing-songy tune? How do you attenuate the drama to the music? And
so the way I've done now 6 musicals, and they've all been adaptations of existing works, except for one. So I wrote a musical called The Guinea-Pig Club, which is quite an interesting conceit because it's about. It doesn't sound like your typical topic for musical theatre. It's about a plastic surgeon in World War II, pioneering plastic surgeon, who would recreated the faces of RAF pilots who had been burned in war, and that's based on a true story. But it's not adapted from anything. I haven't adapted it from anything in particular. Whereas the other ones I've adapted are things like. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, 101 Dalmatians. There was a Terry Pratchett novel I adapted called Soul Music. I did a Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. So I've always adapted stuff. Huckleberry Finn. But the one and the way it works is I will read the book and then I will read it again and I will sketch out the key points from what I've read and the things that I think are likely to feed into a musical adaptation. But then I won't read it again when I'm writing the script. So normally the script, so the dialogue doesn't overlap with what's in the book. And then you treat the sort of songs as, the songs are always in a musical. It's not just they stop and sing a song. The song is like an extension of the dialogue. So the emotion of a scene reaches a point where the only thing the characters can do is express it in music. It starts to become quite intuitive, and by the end of the song, something has to have happened. So in a sense, the narrative is being pushed through the medium of song. And that's something, if anyone is trying to write musicals, that's something to remember all the time. That at the start of the song, at the end of the song, something should have happened. And also there should be a reason why people are singing then. Not just, we've got a catchy tune, let's shove it in here. So you identify in any given story the song points. When are the moments of heightened emotion? That's where the songs come. And there are very formulaic things about musicals that you can learn. Once you've watched a number of musicals, you know that there are certain formulas that work. Like the second or third song is almost always like what they call an I want song. So it's a song about someone aspiring to what they want, like Maria in West Side Story, or like Somewhere That's Green in Little Shop of Horrors. It's someone singing about what they want to get out of life, or where they want to go, and that as a device pretty much always works. You know, it's a really solid, strong thing to do, because so much of musical theatre is about the story and about the character and about the journey. And sometimes when you're adapting, so with Gulliver's Travels, it was difficult because Gulliver's Travels is such an episodic novel. I don't know if you've read it at all. It's very episodic. People know the two main islands, you know, Lilliput and Brobdingnag, and you have so Gulliver is he's always the same size, but he's with very, very big people or very, very small people, right? And those are the two big. Those are the islands everyone knows. But there's other islands. There's Laputa, which is the flying island, which is populated by these people who endlessly think and cogitate over futile scientific experiments. And they're always in a virtual kind of coma because they're always thinking. The only way to talk to them and wake them up is to hit them with a bladder on a stick. And then there's an island of the dead. I can't remember what that one's called. There's the Houyhnhnms land, the island of the Houyhnhnms, which are these horses, where horses have enslaved human beings, which is probably a precursor to Planet of the Apes. So there's all of these different things that don't generally get used in adaptations, but it does mean it's very, very episodic because it's one island to the next. And in a music, the difference with a musical, that works for a novel, but with musical theatre, you have to have an arc, a character arc that goes all the way through. So I had to be quite creative in terms of what happens to Gulliver through the course of the musical and the story of Gulliver. So I ended up adding things that aren't in the novel. So it's a really fascinating. And the other great thing about writing musical theatre is it is so essentially collaborative. You can't do it yourself. You know, I know there are some utter geniuses who do everything themselves, right? But most of us can't do that. And what we do, so I can't write music, for instance, and so I write lyrics, but I'm stuck after that. And then you're working with a director who often doubles as a dramaturg, who's going to talk to you about what's working and what's not. And I really enjoy it. I really love doing that. I've talked a lot about this. We need a signal when I'm getting boring. There needs to be like a term, a phrase, or something.
Like a safe word. I need to check. Yeah. The college that I built my career on is having an emergency meeting, either to shutter its doors or to deal with the crisis, and I just need to make sure that they can't hear me. So I need to. I'll be right back.
No worries. Where are you now? So why can they hear you?
Okay, so they're having an emergency meeting. But because they can't meet in person, they're doing it on the internet. So I'm recording it with my other computer just in case they say something awesome that I can use. Continued coverage.
Are you saying you're okay?
I'm fine, but I do want to turn it into a musical. Evergreen, the musical. It's just. Have you seen any of the footage of it? I should send you a couple of distilled links because
I've seen when the Weinstein thing. Yeah, I've seen the footage. It's pretty scary.
Oh yeah, they go to another level. It's transcendent. I think it's perfect for a musical.
Yeah, and it's just incredible bullying. It's just incredible vicious bullying, and yeah. So yeah, a music that would be perfect. I mean, there needs to be like an anti-woke musical. I'm not the one to write that.
Really?
But yeah,
no,
I don't think no because I've done so much of this stuff now.
Oh, okay.
Like I think I've written 2 books as Titania. I've written endless articles about the topic. I know. So I did an interview recently, a live interview, and I said to them beforehand, can we not talk about woke stuff? And can we not talk? And of course, they made the very good point that the people have bought tickets to hear us talk about it.
Yeah.
And of course, and they made the other very good point, which is that it's all right for me because I talk about this stuff all the time. A lot of these people don't get to talk about this stuff, but they really want to.
Yeah.
And they feel afraid to do so, and this is an opportunity. And of course, and that's the other reason I wanted to do the tour with Douglas, because I'm aware that, well, 2 reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is that it does brings people into the conversation in conversations they won't normally have. But also, it's a way for us to talk through the ideas to reach a better understanding for ourselves. But I do kind of feel like if I wrote a musical, I mean, that would be overkill. It's a lot of work as well.
Yeah, that's true, huh? How long do these musicals take for you to write? 6 months?
Yeah, for a draft, right? But the problem is then it's never fully done. So like this musical that's on in August, that won't be. I could have another few years on it, and so the musical that was on last year, the one I wrote called Paperboy, had been on the year before that, and in between those 2 productions of the same show, I rewrote all sorts of things. There was an extra song in there. You're constantly developing it. Musicals take years and years to get right. They really do.
Okay. It's just not a one-off. You just walk in there and it just happens.
No, that never happens. I mean, even things like massive successes like Matilda, that took 8 years of development. It takes a long time to get it right. And you're always even when it's in front of an audience, that's the point you often spot things and think, oh, that's not working, or
Okay.
It's fun. It's really fun.
Do you think you'll ever go down the Disney route? Do a Frozen? Or?
I don't think it could work because I think I'm my instinct is to resist the sentimental always, and that's a problem, and it's particularly a problem for musical theatre, which is a tradition of sentimentality. But if you think about like my favourite musicals, like Little Shop of Horrors, which I think is an absolute masterpiece, is so not only unsentimental but anti-sentimental. If you think about it, it's got the love story, it's got the things you have to have, but even like the big love song Suddenly Seymour is kind of funny, and it feels melodramatic in a way that's needless. The fact that one of the main protagonists is eaten by a plant. They pull back from the sentimental all the time, and it's very funny. I don't like things that are cloying, mawkish. I feel I cringe when that sort of thing happens. So I tend to write musicals that resist sentimental, and by sentimental I mean I would go with James Joyce's definition of sentimentality, which is unearned emotion.
Okay.
That's the way I describe it. There's nothing wrong with emotion, high emotional stakes, and being moved. I think being moved by a piece is very important. But if it's unearned, in the way like if you watch like Pearl Harbor by Michael Bay, and it's constantly playing sad music at the point at which you're meant to feel sad, you haven't earned that. Okay. You're just telling us what we're meant to feel. And that kind of trickery can work, of course, because music has that effect on you, but it's unearned. So I always balk at the sentimental, just artistically. Even though I'm quite a naturally sentimental person, I'm very susceptible to it, and maybe that's why I mistrust it. What about you? Are you quite a sentimental person?
I resonate with what you're saying. Like, I always resist when it's obvious. Like, the moment it becomes... And I'm probably sensitive enough to know right before it becomes obvious, so I'm always kind of resisting that. Exactly.
It's a really good... Because it's a real flaw in art and literature, the sentimental. It's not good. What about you, the human being? Are you easily upset by things?
As a human being? You're asking me about my human status, being upset?
Is that okay?
No, that's fine. I haven't been upset recently, but when I do get upset, I always am amazed at how my emotions are telling me something that doesn't necessarily match up to reality, and so I just kind of sit with my emotion and kind of watch it. Kind of really strong emotions.
So you mean that you are easily upset by things that perhaps, if you were just being completely rational and logical, you wouldn't concern you? Or shouldn't?
Has anybody ever? Okay, well, I don't know if anybody's ever entirely rational or logical, or even the people who are always motivated or fueled by emotion. But I'm not necessarily tied to the logical and the rational, but I am tied to a certain kind of baseline state of being chill, at least in my behavior, even if the inside, like, because I guess because of my memory, if I do something stupid, I live with that for years. It takes a while. So over time, I've learned to just not overact, right? So I hold a lot in and just watch the things.
Interesting. I don't want to psychoanalyze you, by the way. That's not what I was trying.
Well, it was interesting. What?
Your father.
Do I have a relationship with my father?
Yeah, do you have issues there? Anything?
I did, but just back in my 20s, you know.
I thought so.
Do you need another gin and tonic? It's sad.
I'm only teasing you.
Are you guys fine for the weekend? Are you guys set up? Do you guys have plenty of beans? Is this...
Well, we've got... we didn't do that stupid stockpiling thing. So we've got what we've got in the house, you know, and it's fine. But it'll be fine. It's totally fine. Like, you can... The shops are... There's food in the shops. Okay. We're not... it's not going to be an issue. I mean, you can still get a bloody Domino's pizza.
Oh, they're delivering?
Yeah. It's not the war. We really need to put things into perspective a little bit.
This interview and my last interview are totally... You two have totally different positions. I should have had you guys both on at the same time.
Who? Sorry.
Katie Herzog. She's a writer on Twitter. You should definitely... If you don't know her, you should get aware of her. She's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
But she has a completely different perspective on it. But she's American, so we don't have...
Well, you people tend to catastrophize, don't you? That's
what are you talking about? We're on the verge of revolution at any given moment. Like, they might come for our guns, or they might come, the bad guys or the bosses might come for us.
They might. Yeah, well, I mean, I spoke to a friend in America who said that the gun stores had all sold out of guns.
Yeah, the very liberal areas, too. Totally anti-Second Amendment areas, voting-wise, all liquidated their gun stores when this happened.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
So, yeah.
Something I wouldn't want. I have held a gun once, and I didn't enjoy it. Yeah. Didn't like it. I felt weird about it, you know?
Like, is this like a kind of like a cultural problem or like a personal problem?
We're just not used to them. We don't even see them here. I've seen them a lot in Northern Ireland, but I've got so used to people... Yeah, I mean, no, as in the police in Northern Ireland are wrong. Yeah. But in England, I just got so used to... over here, I've got so used to not seeing it. And when in America, and my friend had a gun in his hand, he owned a gun, so I held this gun, and this is in Ohio, so that's allowed, right?
Yeah, it's allowed everywhere.
And I just felt weird about it. I thought this is a lethal implement. I don't much like that.
Yeah, well, your machine kills fascists too. I mean, you have a lethal implement.
What machine?
Like your little Twitter machine. Your massive following of 400,000 people or whatever, an obscene number of people waiting on your every word.
I hope not.
You could start a panic of some sort. Titania's panic. Moral panic of Titania.
I could, couldn't I? I could.
You could?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I will. It's difficult with her at the moment because, of course, I can only talk about... She's only going to talk about the coronavirus at the moment.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, what else? Anything else I make a joke about or make an observation on is like, no one cares. It's like the news. I mean, you watch the news, there is no other story. You know? I mean, there was a story the other day about peace talks with the Taliban and the possibility that they might get al-Zawahiri. And that's quite a big deal. But no one read it. It was last week. There was some talk about the potential of because there's talks going on with the Taliban at the moment. There's a potential of getting out the Al Qaeda #1, who's hiding out in between the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. And this is quite a big story under normal conditions. No one knew about it. I had to go to page 35 of the newspaper to find it. Normally that'd be a big story. So no one's really talking about anything but the virus now.
Do you feel resentful that you have to follow the public's attention?
Do I have to follow?
Yeah. That you have to remain topical?
Oh, well, I mean, it makes sense because the person I'm satirizing would be commenting on what's happening.
Okay.
It's the same reason that I don't really like Twitter, right? But it makes no sense to satirize the kind of person who would be obsessed with Twitter and not do it through Twitter.
Yeah.
So that, that's the forum that you should use. You can't do it through Instagram. Instagram's too nice. You don't, people on Instagram are not. Why is that, by the way? I don't really know why that. I mean, I don't even know how to use Instagram really, but people, they don't get on these big arguments. It's because it's all visual, isn't it? So
yeah,
people
it's
don't
all
get
picture. Yeah.
locking horns and all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Twitter is almost designed for, aggression.
I just don't know if we'll ever get around the aggression. I think if we can constellate the aggression with other modes of communication, but I think that the drama always drives debate. And so I think that liberal society...
You make a very good point. Yes. And you said this earlier, and I think you're right. In a sense, people are rewarded by the drama, psychologically.
Yeah.
Not, you see. So I back away from that sort of thing. I don't want the big drama. I want sensible adult discussions in calm tones. That's what I want. I really do. I can't be dealing with it. I switch off as soon as someone starts shouting. I just switch off. I'm not interested. That's what a grumpy teenager behaves like.
And you're beyond that.
Yes, frankly.
I think that's a sensible elitism. Adulthood is the elitism that we can.
Yeah, don't talk to cantankerous kids masquerading as adults. Sure. Yeah. I think that's a fair point to. What's the point though? I mean, you can't get anywhere. That's why I will always talk to someone who sensibly and politely disagrees. Always. Someone calls me a fascist or whatever, I won't. I'll start screaming. Or the Twitter equivalent of screaming.
All caps.
All caps, emojis, GIFs, whatever. I can't be bothered anymore. Sometimes I will, just because if it makes me laugh. If someone is so irrational, then I'll go along with it because that's quite funny. But that's just if I'm bored. But I'm not gonna. It's not gonna be a serious discussion, is it? You're not gonna. It's not. There's no level of productivity there.
I'm really, really glad that we had this conversation because now I know how you pronounce GIF, and it aligns with my preferred pronunciation. I had another guest on. She pronounced it as GIF, and it was really difficult. After that, I didn't know how to continue with that conversation, but we made it through. That almost threw me off.
I think that's wrong. I think. Don't you think?
I think it's totally wrong, but I'm wrong about Titania. So.
Well, it's like hegemony. How would you pronounce hegemony?
Hegemony or hegemony?
Or in a lot of it, British people pronounce it hegemony or hegemony.
Oh God! See, that goes too far. Hegemony? God.
Yeah. No, honestly, that's quite a standard British thing, and yet some of the people I respect the most in Britain would say no, it's definitely hegemony.
Okay, good.
So what the
hegemony? That sounds like some really, really bad sort of marriage. Like that's even worse than polyamory. Hegemony?
I think it's wrong. I remember I had this debate with someone. We checked the Oxford English Dictionary's phonetic spelling, and they claimed it was hegemony. Okay. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that.
Hegemony. Andrew, we're frozen again.
I think we probably should call it a day, shouldn't we? Because we keep freezing.
We're
this
futzing.
It's a nightmare for you to edit.
That's fine. People are going to love it. Thanks for coming on again. Can I call you back one more time to say goodbye with an animated face? It's really difficult to talk to you when you're frozen.
Yeah, sorry. How many times has it frozen during the course of the conversation?
I'll give you the tally later.
But it's not good.
It's going to be fine.
Okay. I'm going to have to I'm getting one of those dongles and I'll sort out. So if we do it again, I'll make sure we're connected.
Yeah, there's different kinds of dongles. I have this really nice dongle, but it's like a serious thing. It's got like, it's like
that's an industrial. Like you could connect everything.
Yeah, everything.
Skynet. That's something we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about religion. We should do that.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Let's do it next time.
Okay.
Because there's a long story. Look, I went to convent school. My mother was a nun. It's a long story, so we'll do that next time.
Wait, your mother's a nun? Congratulations for reaching the end of the podcast. If you enjoyed this product, consider donating to this channel via paypal.me/Benjamin Boyce or joining me on Patreon. Also follow me on Twitter at Benjamin A. Boyce. Have a good night.